evening, you're watching the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. First, the headlines. The United States withdraws from a landmark nuclear missile pact with Russia. A truce and ceasefire between the government and rebels takes effect in Syria. And North Korea tests fire missiles as the UN Security Council meets to discuss the launches. Those are the headlines, and now for the news in detail. The United States formally withdrew from a landmark nuclear missile pact with Russia today after determining that Moscow was in violation of the treaty, something the Kremlin has repeatedly denied. Washington signaled it would pull out of the arms control treaty 6 months ago unless Moscow struck the accord. Russia called the move a ploy to exit a pact that the United States wanted to leave anyway in order to develop new missiles. The 1987 Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty was negotiated by then US President Ronald Reagan and Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev. It banned both sides from stationing in Europe land-based missiles with a range of between 500 to 500,000 kilometers, reducing their ability to launch a nuclear strike at short notice. Today, Russia said it had asked the United States for a moratorium on the deployment of short and intermediate range nuclear missiles in Europe. President Vladimir Putin says Russia does not want an arms race, and he has promised he will not deploy Russian missiles unless the United States does so first. Syrian government airstrikes halted today in the country's northwest after a truce went into effect there, but ground fire killed at least one person in a government-held village. The conditional ceasefire went into effect at midnight last night. The report said rebels will have to retreat 20 kilometers from demilitarized areas surrounding the stronghold that were agreed to in a ceasefire deal reached last September. Syrian state news agency Sana said rebels fired 5 rockets into a village near the president's hometown of Kardaha, killing 1 civilian and wounding 3 others. Speaking about the truce, Syria's UN ambassador Bashar Jafari appeared to be skeptical, saying that thousands of foreign fighters remain in Idlib, describing them as part of an international terrorist project. The truce went into effect hours after UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres authorized an investigation into attacks on health facilities and schools in the rebel-held enclave, following a petition from Security Council members. United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres said he is worried about rising tensions in the Gulf. The UN chief told reporters that a minor miscalculation in the region could lead to a major confrontation. He said such a confrontation could have devastating implications on global security and the global economy. He said his message to leaders can be boiled down to 2 words: maximum restraint. The ongoing showdown has caused jitters around the globe, with each maneuver bringing fears that any misunderstanding or misstep by either side could lead to war. South Korea's president today vowed stern countermeasures against Japan's decision to downgrade its trade status, which he described as a deliberate attempt to contain South Korea's economic growth and a selfish act that would damage global supply chains. President Moon Jae-in made the comments ahead of an emergency cabinet meeting to discuss the Japanese measures which South Korea says could hurt its export-dependent economy. Japan's cabinet today approved the removal of South Korea from a list of countries with preferential trade status, triggering anger and threat of retaliation from Seoul and fueling antagonism already at boiling point over earlier export controls and the issue of compensation for wartime Korean laborers. Moon said South Korea is ready to impose unspecified countermeasures and warned that Japan will be held accountable for what will unfold going forward. The tension, expanding controls over exports of sensitive material, takes effect on August the 28th. North Korea fired missiles for the 3rd time in 8 days today, a series of launches that analysts say are designed to improve military capabilities and pressure the United States and South Korea as they start to restart nuclear talks. The North has been testing missiles despite US President Donald Trump's June 30th meeting with its leader, Kim Jong-un, where they agreed to revive the talks. South Korea said the latest projectiles fired by the North appeared to be new short-range ballistic missiles. They flew 220 kilometers and reached an altitude of 25 kilometers. North Korean state media said Kim oversaw the firing of what they described as new large-caliber multi-launch guided rocket system on Wednesday. He also observed the launch of a short-range ballistic missile last week. The launches appear intended to put pressure on South Korea and the United States to stop planned military exercises later this month and offer other concessions. The UN Security Council met behind closed doors in New York yesterday to discuss the latest missile launches by North Korea. Foreign ministers attending ASEAN East Asian Summit of 18 nations expressed concern that the North's missile tests were having a negative impact on dialogue. After the meeting, representatives of Britain, France and Germany urged North Korea to engage in meaningful talks with the United States and said international sanctions need to be fully enforced until Pyongyang has dismantled its nuclear and ballistic missiles program. Nuclear envoys from the United States, South Korea and Japan met on the sidelines of the meeting today, where they were expected to discuss the North's latest tests and ways to restart working-level talks between the United States and North Korea. Still to come in our news bulletin. Club's youth camp concluded in the governorate of South Sharqiya with activities that contributed in developing youth capabilities and skills. Welcome back to the news from the Sultan of Oman television. Global stock markets remained under pressure Friday, particularly in Europe, after President Donald Trump revealed another tariff announcement on Chinese imports. Trump's announcement of 10% tariffs on $300 billion of Chinese goods, due to take effect on September the 1st, surprised investors after the White House said Beijing promised to buy more farm goods. That announcement came as their latest round of trade talks ended in Shanghai. China's government added to investors' unease by threatening unspecified retaliation if Trump's tariff hike goes ahead. A British military helicopter dropped sacks of ballast on Friday onto the outer slope of a reservoir dam in a bid to prevent it collapsing and flooding the town below. Police were evacuating more than 6,000 residents of Whaley Bridge in central England after the dam was badly damaged during heavy rains. Officials said the dam, holding back 300 million gallons of water in the reserve above the town, was in danger of failing, putting lives at risk. Police said a Royal Air Force helicopter was shifting 400 tons of aggregate, a mixture of sand, gravel and stone, onto the reservoir wall to reinforce it. Meanwhile, engineers have been pumping out water to get the level down to reduce pressure on the wall and allow the repairs to begin. Oman oil price reached $61.38 per barrel. According to Dubai Mercantile Exchange, Oman oil price declined by $2.28. The average price of Oman oil August 2019 delivery reached $61.72 per barrel, thus $8.27 lower than the price of July 2019 delivery. The 10th workshop of electricity and water rationalization of Gulf Cooperation Council countries concluded in the governorate of Dhofar. The two-day event was organized by the Ministry of Oil and Gas under the theme Rationalization for Sustainability. It aimed to exchange expertise among GCC electricity and water sectors. The workshop dealt with the latest developments and challenges in the field of modern technology and the role of regulations and systems in rationalization of electricity and water consumption. Club youth camps concluded in the governorate of South Sharqiya. It included various programs and activities that contribute to developing youth capabilities and skills. Around 100 participants took part in the camp, which lasted for more than 1 month. The activities of the camp contained a number of scientific, artistic and sports programs that aim to qualify youths in various fields and equip them with knowledge and expertise. Now for the general weather forecast around the Sultanate. Clear to partly cloudy skies will prevail over most of the governorates, with chances of cloud accumulation over the Hajar Mountains. Partly cloudy to cloudy skies with chances of intermittent drizzle are expected over the governorates of Dhofar. Winds will be south to southwesterly light to moderate. Seas will be slight with a maximum wave height of 1.5 meters. This is the Sultanate of Oman television. Before we end tonight's bulletin, here are the main points once again. The United States withdraws from a landmark nuclear missile pact with Russia. A truce and ceasefire between the government and rebels takes effect in Syria. And North Korea test files missiles as the UN Security Council meets to discuss the launches. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news bulletin. From all of us here at the newsroom and the studio, it's good night.